All right, welcome to the latter end.
Lately I've been swimming in the deep end. Used to whip around the coast, now we all up in the hills for the weekend. Not a worry on my mind, you remind me of the days when the sun shines.
This is episode 4. I'm here with 12Prodigy. How are you, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Sure, it's a pleasure to have you on. I've been seeing a lot of your music on Instagram. I think
Mhm,
you're very talented. You're clearly very musically inclined. So I really
mhm.
appreciate your time here. And to start things off, tell us about yourself and just kind of where you're from and, like anything else that you might want your fans or audience to know about you personally. And then also give us a brief background about just how you got started in music.
Yeah, totally. So I go by the name of 12Prodigy.
Put the game in my hand, I got a trick in my sleeve. I just been stuck in my mind, I cannot leave. I'm a head MVP, yeah.
I'm born and raised in a small town called Monterey. It's in Central Coast, like in California. I had just recently moved to Los Angeles to pursue this career in music as an artist, mix engineer, and an entrepreneur myself. And being only 19, I feel like just want to capitalize on this opportunity, being young and hungry, and just very adamant about my craft. And so I basically got into this when during COVID. So I was like 12 or 13, and I feel like everything was on lockdown. And there was this like period of when like TikTok was starting to like really pop off, and a lot of people were just making songs and just kind of fooling around. This is like post SoundCloud era. So like there was this new kind of market for artists that were blowing up on TikTok. And so me and my brother, my older brother at the time, had this idea. We were like, man, we should just make a song and just like everything's on lockdown. So it's like no one's gonna like make fun of us if we're out in public or whatever. Like, just kind of fool around and kill some time. So we had initially made a song. It was called 100%. It's actually on Spotify. It's my first song. You could actually go check it out.
Yeah.
Um, and that song did like 1,000 streams in the first week, and having no like prior music experience or like in the studio or like releasing songs ever, it just kind of like naturally took off. And I feel like from that point on, I was like, man, this is so like intriguing to me. I just like I could do this for free, so like let me just keep doing this. And so then I initially got into like the audio space during that time, because studios were still closed, and I come from a small town and there's not many studios in my area. So you kind of had to like learn how to do your own like, mixing and recording. So I had to like self teach myself all those like skill sets per se.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's a lot, man. It's not just
Mhm.
like, going to a mic and then hitting the red button and then singing or, or like rapping. It's a lot that
Totally.
goes into it. There's a lot of technicalities that go into it. So how involved are you in that? Like I know you mentioned that you do mixing and that you do some of the engineering aspect of things. Are you
Oh
involved
yeah.
in production too?
Production. So I actually used to produce all of my own stuff. Me and my older brother, we'd produce. But as I was getting more into like the audio side of things, I was like, man, it's so time consuming. So I had to like, now I work with producers, or sometimes I'll still be in the creative in sessions when they're like making beats and whatnot. Um, but a lot of times, yeah, I work with a lot of producers on Instagram, or so on and so forth. But I'm super serious in the audio field. In fact, I probably like value it maybe just a little bit more of me being actually on the mic, just because the technicality of like editing every single like plosive and making sure everything's consistent in the song, and like this snare might be a little too loud, so I gotta lower it. So just things that like the average artist is not really paying attention to, because let's face it, like a lot of artists my age, they're kind of just like punching in, or just like making a song, boom, it's done, making a song, boom, it's done. I have no problem with that. It's just like for me, I make sure I gotta sound at least like 80% of what's like commercially available, and I got to
Yeah.
make sure my mixes are like on that level.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the quality is important, and
Mhm.
I think that's a good goal is to ensure that you're have good quality on your tracks. I know you mentioned that you made a song with your brother kind of during the TikTok craze, height of the pandemic sort of era, I presume.
Totally,
Um,
yeah.
you post this one track, it starts to get a little bit of traction. I talked to you personally though, a little bit prior to this, and you said that you in middle school you were playing instruments. So like,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
also true. Yeah, so I'd gone to this Waldorf school, where they're very like you know arts and crafts related and less like book oriented. They let you kind of like follow your own like kind of path in life. So you're required to play an instrument literally from like kindergarten all the way to like, sixth grade, whatever. And so you go from like a recorder and then you move on to like a violin. And then I decided to go with a viola and then playing the advanced strings. And I feel like that taught me like, all about like sections and parts of songs, and that, you know, definitely a harder instrument, or going from a, string instrument to like going on the microphone. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's a little different, but the action of like honing in and practicing consistently on something and then applying that same skill set musically into
Yeah.
another like field was like the same approach I took when I was like learning how to play viola and all this sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. So there were some
Mhm.
parallels in that regard, just in the process of sort of improving upon your skills and kind of understanding a musical process, that there's
Totally.
some
Yeah.
parallels. Yeah, I mean, of
Yeah.
course, the nuances are different of being a vocal recording artist and playing an instrument. And as you noted, you put this song out with your brother. You've clearly kind of gravitated towards music at a young age. You're clearly very naturally adept and have some
Mhm.
musical inclination. No question. You have some great music. At what point did you realize I'm going to go all in on this? I'm really going to pursue this to the fullest extent.
Yeah, this was like 2021, early 2021. So like January, February. By this point, I had already released a single, my first single, and then I'd followed it up with a 7-track quote unquote EP, which was self-titled 12 Prodigy. And so I just had so much fun like doing that. And like I said, still lockdown, by the way, and I
Yeah.
just remember every single, like I had a whole home studio, like lesser of what it is now, but I had like the home studio at the time, and I would just be in there every single day with my brother. We'd just be making songs, producing, just writing, just having so much fun with it that by that time in 2021, I was like, let's just go all in. There's nothing to lose because how young I am, and also everyone around me is also doing it and gaining success and traction. Like I wasn't trying to blow up. I was just trying to like see improvement in my sound over a certain amount of time, and I wanted to see progression. So then by the time I really wanted to like start putting, money behind these singles, and like I could really see like improvement and, positive feedback.
And what's your recording process like? Just curious. Are you somebody who likes to write, or is it more just naturally punching in and out?
Yeah, so I originally started like writing everything I do. I in fact I still have the notebooks, like just little like practice things or little words that like sounded better. Now when I'm in the studio, I'm like listening to like the instrumental whatever, and literally like whatever comes to my mind, I'm just gonna like record that. It doesn't even have to be words. It could just be me humming whatever. And I'm basically building out the melody and how I want things to go, so that when I like the way like my humming or like gibberish sounds on the track, I could like go in and fill it with, you know, words or start
Yeah.
punching in stuff. Yeah. But that's
Yeah.
kind of my
Yeah.
process. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's more about kind of finding the melodies and, kind of focusing on it sonically first. So so
Totally.
the sound is there. Then you go in and, fill in the lyrics accordingly.
Yeah. I'll
Yeah.
have like 3 different versions of the way a melody sounds. So I can pick which one I feel like is the most catchiest, and then I can narrow it down to like which one I feel like will be the most like I can listen to all the time, or like this will sound good in a club, or like, and then kind of see where that goes, see where it takes me.
You have great melodies, man. I mean, I've heard a few
Mhm.
of your songs and I got stuck on them. I like to run. I was running, I was listening to your tracks.
Yeah.
Um,
No, thank you.
yeah, no, you have great melodies. I mean, where did that come from? Like, when did you discover that you had what it takes sonically? Because you're right that there are a lot of aspiring musicians, but to be frank, you can kind of quickly tell when someone kind of has it or they don't. And I don't mean to sound rude
No,
or
it's
anything,
true.
but
Yeah.
you clearly have what it takes. You have clearly a natural ear where you can hear melodies and you can put these songs together. You're a good songwriter. So at what point did you discover that? Was it when you did that song with your brother?
Yeah, I think that just comes with, growing up, at a young age, just being exposed to so many different genres of music, not just one. And I feel like that's super important in being an artist. You can't be so confined to like one specific genre. So I was growing up listening to like classic rock, and then, a lot of rap from the 90s. And then like, as I was becoming like a teenager, like a lot of the newer stuff that was out, which was like by this time, a lot of like SoundCloud rappers were blowing up. So I feel like finding little pockets and like little melodies I liked from a different genre. And I was like, okay, I like this from this genre. And I feel like applying that to my own sonics, not necessarily copying, but being able to have the freedom to like experiment per se and just kind of find what works. There's no really like blueprint to it. It's kind of just like whatever's in that moment. That's when I'm in the studio, like,
Yeah.
making music, whatever's in that moment, I just, apply to it. And I feel like that's how I get that classic, the signature sound per se.
How did you come up with the name 12 Prodigy?
Yeah, man. So like I said, I started doing music, like really doing music when I was like 12. And I feel like 12, like being so significant to when I started and being 19 now, whatever. But the prodigy part came from like, I feel like 12 is like the last age you can be before you're like not considered a prodigy anymore, in my opinion. I feel like once you get to like the 13, 14, it's kind of like, oh, whatever. But like, I feel like 12 is like young enough to still be like considered different. And I'm always like jack of all trades person when it comes to music, business, whatever. So I wanted to apply that and it just
Yeah.
stuck ever since. Yeah.
You're out in LA right now. How has
Mhm.
that been? Like, just tell us about your experience. Obviously, most people who are watching this are going to know, LA, home of Hollywood, home of
Mhm.
where many aspiring musicians, actors, etc., all go to pursue a creative arts kind of career. How's the networking been and how's that experience been being out in Southern California?
Yeah, it's honestly way crazier. Like coming from a super small town, I had to make the most of that, like with my ambitions and stuff. So I figured LA was the next step. So I moved out here with my business partner, and we just kind of made like this little, like on our whiteboard, like, okay, we gotta like get this amount of work done and just not kind of forget why we're here. So every day for me, it's just been like music, music, music. Just having this, being in this like energy is just like totally impacted the way my sound is and the way like my work ethic per se. And as far as connections, everything now is like done on like Instagram, so I can like make some, like I could post something and then someone from LA will hit me up and be like, yo, this is crazy. In fact, for my last song, yeah, okay, I had posted this like little teaser, and like the super world renowned producer Scott Storch
Wow,
had hit me up on Instagram, just basically like, yo, I've seen your work, it's crazy, just keep doing what you're doing. And
that's awesome.
yeah, I know, just seeing that though made me realize like, wow, this is like really foreseeable career. And like I didn't even know I had eyes like that. So it's like, to my advice to any artist, like whether you move to LA or you're just still working, just like put your stuff out there, because like you never know like what could happen, and you got nothing to lose. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to shatter. I mean, if you're going to be a musician or even do what I'm doing, which obviously they're vastly different, but just in this standpoint, you can't be too concerned about what people are going to say. Like you
Totally.
just
Yeah.
can't,
I
that's
mean,
really hold
you
you back.
know,
And I'm sorry, go
if
ahead. Yeah.
you're not doing it right if you're not getting hate for what you do.
Yeah.
It's like Rick Rubin famously says, like, you either have something that people like definitively hate, like they absolutely hate it, or they love it. There's no in between. So like, I could get hate on a song, it's whatever, but at least I know like, something's working. It's like I don't really mind it at all.
If you have Scott Storch saying something positive about anything you're doing musically, this
Yeah.
is a very promising sign, and it's an exciting sign for you. I mean, you're a young guy. You're 19 years old, and you're already
Mhm.
very adept at writing tracks and having a great melodic sound, catchy sound. You're only
Mhm.
going to get better, and you're already
Mhm.
good.
Yeah, thank you so
So,
much.
yeah, no, of course. How do you go about rolling out music as an independent artist? How does that work?
Yeah, for sure. So for like my fans or anyone listening or watching, I'm fully independent. Like I'm not signed to anything. And currently, right now, I'm sitting at about close to 30,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. And that's just purely through consistency of releasing music. I try to release music every 4 to 6 weeks. And then I follow that up on the Instagram side of like posting reels and whatnot. As far as my rollout strategy goes, so I will literally sit with a whiteboard and a notebook and watch tons of videos for sure. But I would literally sit down and write, okay, I have this single coming out. This single needs X amount of content. This single needs this cover art. The single needs to be done, like mixed and mastered. Like I'm already thinking about this before the song's even like done, mixed or whatever. Cause you always got to be ahead of the curve. I don't have any management or anything. It's just me kind of running the ship. So when it's actually time to release the single, I'm following it up with digital advertising. I feel like that's the most powerful thing you could do. Um, people, it's kind of controversial. There's a lot of artists who will like, there's this thing called like pay for playlisting, which they will pay these third party companies to have their play or have their song added to this playlist, which has a huge number of following, right? But and then like the followers on that place will listen to the song and then hit their song and then like they hope for like saves and that kind of exposure. It's not really like a long-term kind of fan base oriented marketing strategy. Like I always recommend like creating short form content and running ads through Facebook ads. And I think with that you get the quality of the follower and the quality of the fan is way more better, or like way better than like paying this other company for like a stream. So I'm
Yeah.
a big believer in like authenticity and quality over quantity for sure. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, you'll get a more organic following of people who are actually following you for you and your music, as
totally.
opposed to maybe someone who just saw it quick and you got a quick hit. So
Exactly.
they,
Yeah.
yeah, and that helps you build that loyal fan base. You mentioned how you have virtually 30,000 listeners on Spotify. How has it been? What have been the challenges of an independent artist and building a loyal fan base?
Yeah. I mean, getting that first 0 to 1,000 monthly listeners is as hard as getting that 1,000 to 20,000 monthly listeners. But I was never thinking about it in a numbers game. I just wanted to put out the best music that I could. And as a result of that, you naturally just garner, all these people and all these ears, because if you start chasing, the numbers, it's like, where are people going to like that also affects your sound like negatively. So it's like how I did that is I just wanted to make the best music that I could. And I think with, proper like content that I would put out, like a lot of reels and everything, I feel like that just added to you know, the good content added with the good music equals good fans and loyal fans. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned Scott Storch was reaching out regarding the Yeah Okay track. That's the first time I discovered you. I saw it on an ad and I was like,
Mhm.
damn, this is a really good song. Really catchy,
Yeah.
had cool melodies on it, like a very well
Mhm.
written song of someone who's clearly talented and understands music. You mentioned you're from Monterey, which is Northern California. And
Right.
it's not far from where I'm at right now, where I'm from. I'm from San Francisco. I live in San Francisco right now.
Right.
Um, and there's a big music scene out here in the Bay Area, like I Am Sue, who's been around for a while, and Lil Bean.
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
probably heard
yeah,
of Lil
yeah.
Bean and Zay
Mhm.
Bang, and there's an Oakland scene, and of all these rappers that I really like. What local rappers have inspired you, or what local rappers do you listen to frequently?
Locally, like in Los Angeles.
That's a good question. Yeah, either in Northern California or Southern California, since you've spent time in both regions.
Yeah, I mean, LA native icons, like Dr. Dre and Kendrick Lamar and like, Roddy Rich and Nipsey Hussle. I mean, those are just like the greats in LA that everyone, and of
Yeah,
course NWA, everyone, Tupac, whatever. I think, Kendrick Lamar definitely was someone that I, listened to early on, like when he was first putting out music like in 2010 and I was like in middle school or whatever. Um, but I think he's probably like the most native that I listen to currently, like in LA. As far as like LA underground, there's too many artists like
yeah,
underground scene, like locally, that it's like I can't even like pay attention to them. I just gotta like focus on me. Cause I feel like if I
yeah.
start paying attention to everyone else, I'm like gonna start second guessing whatever.
Yeah,
So
I'm gonna start
yeah.
getting wrapped up in that. It's like you have to have tunnel vision. You found a sound that works and that sounds
Oh yeah.
great, and you're building a brand, and you can't get although it's good to do some benchmarking sometimes, maybe just keeping a little bit of an eye as to what's transpiring around you.
Oh
But
totally. Yeah.
but I mean, keeping that tunnel vision, perhaps it's a balancing act
For sure. Yeah.
because your sound is more of that. When I hear you, I hear more of that like very melodic. Like you're banging out the melodies. I think of like bigger, more commercial artists like a Future or a Thugger or
Totally.
like
Yeah.
like a Travis or a Lil Uzi, who I think of like this new auto tune hip hop.
Those are some of like my, biggest inspirations,
Yeah,
started, like getting into that, I mean, I grew up listening to a lot of like 90s hip hop and everything, but then once like the SoundCloud era of like hip hop, it was like something new that no one could adjust to except the younger kids. So like, granted, it was like frowned upon by like the people who grew up listening to like 90s and like early 2000s hip hop, but like young kids like me, like it was something new for us. So yeah, I definitely Young Thug, I feel like Future,
Yeah.
Drake, and like Gunna and Travis. So those are like responsible for a lot of the way, like a lot of the ways I like write and like record and their kind of work ethic. Granted, I wanted to stand out. Like I don't know if you knew this, but I don't swear in any of my music, and that's just purely by choice because I feel like everyone now is trying to do that sound of like Thug and like the melodic scene. So I feel like I had to like have an edge on myself and be a little different. So just to
That's
stand,
cool. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I bet that's hard sometimes, huh?
No, I mean, yeah, definitely. But I feel like
Yeah.
I've been doing it for so long that it's kind of just, especially
Yeah.
a lot of melody writers. It's you're mostly listening to like the harmonics of things and not
Yeah.
necessarily
Yeah.
like what
Totally.
people
Yeah.
are saying. So it is definitely easier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I mean, you have good harmonies, man. Good ad libs, like very melodic ad libs, and your songwriting is great, as I've said. But no, that's cool. I didn't really catch on to that. And, that's
Mhm.
it's a good thing. Like, I didn't, like, it sounded good. Like, I was just wrapped up in the fact that, like, this sounds
Exactly.
cool. Like,
So like
you
no
know,
one is listening to that and noticing that, but it's something
yeah.
that I can notice. And then also as an independent artist, like you'll make more money off your music if it's clean, and then you'll like it's easier to promote because you don't gotta like blur it or beep out every cuss
Yeah.
word, whatever. Like when you're marketing it, yeah, it's just easier in all ends for me. You know.
I know you mentioned, again, I was talking to you a little bit personally, and you mentioned that you have a new song coming out this month and you shot a
Yeah.
music video for it. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so I've been in LA for about, 3 solid months now, and I just made this song, and I had this idea to go back to my hometown and just shoot it just to show people like, where I'm from and just like the roots of everything. So the song's called Stay Right By My. There's some clips on it and, on my Instagram. And so I went back for a week last week. I just got back a couple days ago with my buddy, and we were gonna shoot the whole video just where we're from. And so I brought my camera out there, like the whole rig and everything, and we were just going around location to location, all the spots we used to hang out and whatever, like as a group of friends, whatever, and
Yeah.
we would just shoot, and we got the video done. It's gonna be coming out soon, and it's
Nice.
exciting. Yeah,
Yeah, nice. I'll be looking out for that. I'll
for
be
sure.
looking out.
Yeah,
I follow you on Instagram, so I'll get the scoop and I'll check it out when it's out.
sure. Yeah, it'll be
Yeah,
everywhere. So my
nice,
Instagram, YouTube,
nice.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. That's awesome. Exciting things happening for you, man. So tell us about your e-commerce brand. I know that you mentioned you have an e-commerce brand, so just tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I had gotten into e-commerce. I mean, I've always known about it, since like COVID, when this is also a market that was also blowing up at the time because everyone was locked in, everyone was buying stuff online. I had never really like, I feel like every video I tried to watch was always leading me down like a wrong alleyway. So I had met with one of my good friends who I had moved out with, who's also my business partner, and he's like really into it. And so when it came, like it was like May of last year, I was like, man, I got this plan to move to LA, and I'm not trying to work. I'm just trying to do music full time. And so we basically kind of got into just locking in for like a month. I don't even think I recorded any music. I was just learning everything, all the fundamentals to like, you know, go about running a business and like drop shipping and suppliers and products, and just soaking myself in that whole like it was like a different culture for me, like coming from the music space. So I had already prior knowledge to marketing, like with Facebook advertising and digital advertising, and I just applied those same skill sets to this, and I feel like it worked a lot better than like someone fresh just trying to start. And so I've been doing that now consistently for a minute, which has like funded my whole like lifestyle and like being able to move to Hollywood and Los Angeles and being able to do music full time and just, live my life, how I want.
I've seen some of your stories on Instagram, and you're doing very well at that. That's become such a saturated market now, right? Like,
Mm.
during the height of COVID and when COVID commenced and the lockdowns commenced were, in place, this became such a proliferation of just these online businesses, the drop shipping
Yeah.
business model. But now it's become so competitive, yet you've been able to really find success
Mhm.
and have a lot of sales. So like, what
Mhm.
advice would you have for aspiring drop shippers or people trying to capitalize on a similar online business model?
Yeah, for sure. I would say that any big, dropshipper guru that you watch that's telling you dropshipping is dead. It is not dead. It's just they're telling you that on purpose so that you can get out of their competition and their market. So that's the first thing I would have to say because that honestly led me away from it in the beginning.
Yeah.
My second advice would be stop focusing on how good your website looks and start focusing on what you're actually selling. And what you're selling has to be able to do a couple things. It has to be able to meet someone's needs, solve a problem, and you have to ask yourself, is it always in demand? So it can't just be like, is it good for Christmas or is it good for, the winter, the summer? Is it something that could sell 365 or, is it a short term, kind of long term brand? So
Yeah.
focus on the long-term side of things and focus on quality products and connections that people actually need in their everyday life. And with that, you combine those two or those, assets, then you'll be successful. That's kind of name of
Yeah.
the game.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And how much time? I just want to ask you another question about this.
Yeah,
My
for sure.
podcast really sprung from being like a business podcast. I was an MBA student not long ago, and I had an MBA professor on the podcast in which we discuss, all kinds of professional items. So, I'd like to just ask you, how much time do you put into like product research? I bet that's not always easy to find that winning product.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy. It's like working on music in the sense that like some days you're there, you've got everything, like you're ready, and you're just like making the best you could possibly make. And then some days it's really dry. You got writer's block. So it's the same approach when doing product research. It's like one day you might find like a couple things that like, okay, these are worth testing. This is good. And other days it's like, man, there's like nothing I could like test because it's also really competitive, just like music. So being able to stand out in all that is like the most important thing. So I'll probably spend definitely a couple hours a day for sure, doing product research and just testing certain things. And then if I have like a quote unquote winner, then it'll basically just run. And then my job is to basically just monitor the ship and make sure, it's not going to sink. I create websites on there on Shopify and I market all of my products and everything through Facebook and Instagram. I don't really dabble into the TikTok market, TikTok shop, because it's so like that's the most saturated. And I feel like with Facebook ads, it's the most consistent it's ever been. And that's why every business and like some independent record labels, they all like use that as their main source of like marketing products per se. So yeah, Shopify and Facebook, Instagram, and then yeah.
Again, it's impressive that you've been able to find success because, as you said, the business model is there. I mean,
Mhm.
there's innumerable people that strictly buy things online. Like the online marketplace is massive, but as you said, the issue has become of the competition. It's just become so
Yeah,
increasingly competitive.
totally. Yeah, I know. It's like nowadays, like I've managed to escape the kind of quote unquote competitive market because everyone's on like TikTok shop. That's just the truth. Like if you're in the ecom business, you know that every guru is going to tell you run this on this. But it's like I had to like basically kind of tweak the system where I would sometimes find products on TikTok and then send those customers to Facebook and Instagram. So I feel like that is a market that really hasn't been discovered yet, which is some free game for, all the
Yeah,
listeners or whatever.
it is.
But yeah, doing it right though, I think, and having the right approach is really what, sets you apart. I enjoy being my own like CEO and like I feel like being important to like run my own business. So it's like I look at it as like, okay, my like lifestyle is dependent on how much work I put in. So it's like I really don't mind. I mean, I used to work like multiple jobs at one time, when I was younger. Um, and then when I had this plan to move to LA, I was like, I'm done working. Like I'm going all in on this. And then, literally within the first week of me, like quote unquote, getting to that stage of testing a product, I found the winner and everything kind of
Wow.
just came from there. So I was still learning how to do things on the drop shipping side as I was witnessing the success of the product that I was running, which is really rare. But I worked one on one with my business partner. And so we kind of made it impossible to have or we kind of made it to have like little to no failures along the way. A lot of people might watch this and be like, it's like you have it so easy, but it really is pretty difficult and stressful a lot of times. It's mainly like downsides and upsides when you're running it, just because there's so many like little um, tactile like failures along the way
Yeah.
that
Oh
you
yeah.
always got to be in control of, like at all times, whether that be like messaging suppliers or make sure your orders are getting shipped to the right destination, or like refunds, or like ads, make sure your ads are not paused, and
Yeah.
banks
Oh yeah.
freezing your cards. Yeah, a lot of stuff. Yeah,
Oh, for sure. There's a lot that goes into it. Working 9 to 5 takes 8 hours. If you want to be your own boss, then you're gonna have to work at least 12 hours. Like,
totally. I
like the whole like
100%
be your
agree.
own boss thing. Like
Yeah.
it's sexy on the surface, but it's work and it's blood, sweat, and tears.
No, 100%. Yeah. I mean, just based on experience, like I could personally tell you it's hard enough like doing the music as hard as I'm pushing it, and also managing. So I'll be like I said, I was at the video like shooting a music video, and like in between takes I would be messaging like my supplier, like, monitoring things, make sure everything's smooth sailing. So like, it's definitely not just a set and forget or get rich overnight. It's, a lot of product research and a lot of hard work. And yeah,
Yes,
but
it is.
granted, nowadays there's a lot of great videos, you could watch on the internet that'll help you kind of
Yeah.
navigate. But
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Hard work.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, even my YouTube channel right now, it's in such startup mode. It's like you put so much time into a video
Mhm.
and you post it and you get a minimal amount of views. And that's when people quit. Like that's why 90% of
Totally.
YouTubers don't last. And this can be extrapolated out in drop shipping and anywhere else. They don't find that winning product fast
Mhm.
enough. They're putting a lot of time, sweat, and energy into it. And now it doesn't last. But those who stick with it, those who stay consistent, who keep showing up even when it's tough, keep finding ways to get better, keep reflecting on how I can get better. Those are, you certainly increase your chances of breaking through.
Yeah, I mean, it's a marathon, not a race. You're in it for consistency, but that also divides who's really like for real about this, and like who's just in it for a cash grab. Because if you're in it for a cash grab, you'll give up super soon. But the people who like want to build a long-term business and brand, they're gonna keep going no matter what. They're not gonna be turned off because 4 or 3 winners failed, but little did they know that fourth winner or that fourth product was the winner. So
Yep.
it's
Yep.
it's
You're absolutely.
consistency. That's it. Same with the
Yeah.
podcast game. It's like you might put out episodes and episodes and see very little traction, but you might give up before that next episode was even, you little did you know, it was the biggest one you would ever drop.
Yeah. Yeah.
No
But yeah,
worries.
no,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, man. And it's about perseverance. And that's why it's important to find something you like to do, because then that
Totally.
way you'll
Yeah.
persevere even when times are tough, or it doesn't seem to be making any traction, you're not able to monetize it. But so that's where the sort of the passion part of the equation comes into play. But the final question I want to ask you is,
Yeah.
as a young artist yourself, what advice, and you touched on this a little bit briefly, but if you can kind of get more into it, what
Mhm.
advice would you give to young aspiring artists who are trying to make it in the music game?
Yeah, for sure. I would say to anyone, starting out, whether, you're young or older, just put your music out there. Put your music out there consistently. And you got to be able to just, you know, make music, make tons and tons of music, and play it for your friends. And if you like it and they like it, then, like I said, Rick Rubin always said, like, if you like it and the other person like it, then it means it's ready to be put out. I know tons of people, even my own friends, who just sit on music and music and it never gets anywhere. And they're always going to tell you like, oh, I'm going to drop it. And they never drop it. It's like, if you're really trying to take this for real and really trying to be something in the music space, you're competing with millions of other people who are consistently putting out music. So you're not different by not putting out your music. So you just got to put it out there, whether it's bad or if it's good. It's like, the best part is like, you can see progression over a long period of time. Like, if any of my audience or whatever could go look at my first song and then go look at my most recent, and they're all out. Like, I could take down all my old stuff anytime, but it's like I keep it up there to remind myself like where I came from and like the consistency that's come behind it, Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Because the path is intriguing. Like my first YouTube video was so trash. It
Yeah,
was so,
exactly. But like, the time you put it out, maybe you
yeah,
thought it was the coolest thing you'd
right,
ever
right.
done, right? Same thing with me putting out music. Now I can listen to music that's like 5 years old and I like cringe. I'm like, oh my God, people really like
Yeah,
supported me from this. But that's the whole point. That's the name of the
yeah,
game. It's like,
yeah, man. Yeah,
yeah.
dude. Yeah, it's like go look at Young Thug stuff when he was doing stuff like with I think I don't want to mispronounce it, but like his stuff like even before he really broke out to the scene.
He's
Yeah,
doing stuff with like Birdman and
correct.
I forgot the other
It was like
forgot the other one's
Birdman. I
name.
think he had some early, stuff with Gucci Mane as well.
Yeah, and
Um,
like because he was really, that's the thing too. His one of his idols is like Lil Wayne. So
yeah,
like him first starting music, he was trying to sound like Lil Wayne. I mean,
yeah,
a lot of
yeah,
rappers at the time were, but
yeah,
it's like then through a period of time, he started to discover his own sound. Like if you
yep,
listen to my old stuff, it's completely different from what I sound like now.
right,
It's because of the, long period of time of,
yeah,
just putting out music. Yeah. That's another thing I would say, just to like, wrap up your question, like to any artist, I wouldn't focus on trying to make a hit, because if you look at like the biggest artists on Spotify or in the world, they have like maybe 10 songs that are hit songs. But you're not looking at, like, little do you know, they have like 500 other songs that people like still resonate and listen to every day, because it's like when the artist's in the studio, they're not trying to make a hit. They're trying to make just the best music they can. And when you do that, you'll instantly start putting out hits on hits on hits, but you
yeah.
wouldn't know it because you're not trying to make a hit.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Was a really a great pleasure talking to you. I'm very impressed by the way in which you present yourself. I think on
Mhm.
the business side of things that you got a very bright future, and as a musician, you clearly have a very bright future. And I really appreciate you joining the show, man. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much. I feel like this was a great like way to like give people a little insight and behind the scenes on like what my, little routine and work ethics like. So
Yeah,
I really appreciate you taking the time. This is awesome.
of course, man. It was a pleasure. Take care. I'll talk to you soon, man.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you so much. Take
Yeah,
care, man.
anytime.
Thank
Too.
you.